welcome to the Lipp Men on the UFO, on the UFO, on the UFL. I wish it was a UFO. That'd be great. I'm confusing my shows. I am the older Lipp Man, Jeff, and I think it's time we bring in the co-host with the most, the younger Lipp Man.
Here we go. Week one's in the books.
Yeah, that was a dramatic pause there. So
I didn't realize I was on the screen at first. Life's been good. March Madness has been around. That's been keeping us plenty busy, but it was nice to see the return of football. I got my little Ravens hoodie on today. No real connection at all, but life's been good, and it's nice to be talking football here today.
Yeah. So, folks, we missed the last 2 weeks. It wasn't exactly planned. Week one, we had some logistical issues really spread out amongst everybody in our little group. And then last week, Glenn had some issues where he was not able to be near solid internet and had other issues. So you really probably didn't miss a lot, because at the end of the day, it was a lot of perseverating about things that didn't come to pass. But the offseason, I think we're going to mention some of it in the beginning, mostly because that's how I formatted the show in my mind, but also because I'm not sure all of these issues are actually resolved, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of them don't pop off again from time to time. Oh, Jake, your fan is here. I don't know what that says about my face, but that's all right. That's all right. It's really not a competition here. You're obviously the handsome one.
I still got patches in my beard, but we don't got to tell anybody that.
Yeah, I still have patches of hair. So
at least there still is hair.
You know what? I had this same discussion with somebody. So a few weeks ago, in this strange group of people from my old workplace was assembled for a happy hour. And I don't know who picked the invitees, but it was like over a span of like people from like 24 years. And you know, so I got the fabulous comment like, wow, you really got old. I'm like, well, it's been 25 years. And then I said, and then one of the guys had his hair, cut like the Jean-Luc Picard. And I'm like, I'm thinking about doing that. And he said the same thing. He goes, but you still have hair. I'm like, yeah, but if you like move the parts or whatever, you'll see there's like caverns where the hair's not growing. It's like, it's not a comb over, but it's like a quasi comb over. And I don't want to be a comb over guy. But everyone says that you still have hair. Anyway, back to football in the UFL. So in the offseason, there was a lot of kerfuffles about labor issues. 3 weeks ago, we had Charles on the show. He went into the labor issues a lot. He sort of blamed it all on the quarterbacks. It wasn't limited to the quarterbacks. It wasn't limited to the coaches. Sort of all around, there were issues about health insurance and salaries. And basically, Fox through Daryl Johnston saying, nah, you can ask for all you want, but you're not getting anything more. And then you got the usual echo of people going, well, between the ownership of the UFL, these are companies that are worth $60 billion. They can spend another $3 million. That's not the way business works.
And it's not like the UFL's making all that much money anyways right now.
Yeah, the UFL is still in a net loss of probably tens of millions of dollars, which I think they knew going in. They had a X number of years plan, like Peacock did, like I think Amazon Prime did. I mean, for the TV, for the streaming version, Apple TV. I mean, plenty of companies have that as a plan, but it doesn't excite them either. So anyway, the league called the players bluff, and most of the players, they showed up and they played. The league
Let's be real, the players are always going to show up. I mean, at the end of the day, you can want to get paid more, you can want all of that, but there's unfortunately a reason that you're in the UFL. It's here to get an opportunity. They're paying you $55,000 to play a short season of football to give you an opportunity, and it's proven the opportunity works. 75 guys got signed to the NFL last year.
Yeah.
Now, granted, only 14 are still on rosters.
Right.
But this is an opportunity, but they're not in a position to be bargaining right now, the players. You're in the UFL because you're looking for an opportunity. So I think you're absolutely right when you call it a bluff. The players are bluffing. They wanted the owners, the rich ownership group, to open up their pocket purses, and they said no. And guess what? We were talking about it. We didn't think the first game might even happen. I mean, it was barely even on social media. It felt like there was no promotion of it. And you know what? The game happened, and all of the games happened. And there were some wins and there were some losses, and it was football. But I'll let you keep talking about the offseason before we move all the way in to the games we just saw.
Well, some of the most interesting parts of the offseason were in the prior 10 days when two teams lost their head coaches. So it wasn't just the players, it's the coaches too. One coach just left, didn't really say why, but it was probably about money. He said personal reasons, which usually means money. Another head coach got hired by Tennessee State, took that job, and not exactly a prestigious, program, but it's a D1 school, and he will be paid all year round, all year long, with full health insurance. And that's a big deal. And he's already said he's going to bring his entire staff, and that was Reggie Barlow of the DC Defenders, to Tennessee State. Now, if it happens during the season or after the season, it's not entirely unclear. People, and by the way, we talked about CJ Johnson and him on the active roster. We got that wrong. Everyone got that wrong. He's the head coach. Why they traded for him to be the head coach, I do not know. There we go. She was right. You can't bite the hand that feeds you.
Summarize it perfectly.
Yeah. And so two head coaches left. So two head coaches stepped up. But one of them, until 3 days ago, said, until I'm told otherwise, I'm the offensive line coach. So, I mean, and one of the head coaches has the interim title in his name. Now, we're going to get to that in a little bit. I imagine that interim title will be removed, by Monday morning, which is tomorrow. But there was a lot of will they, won't they, and the league didn't budge. And, the way businesses work is that it doesn't matter what their net worth is. Xavier Vicious. There he is. He follows me everywhere. So that's good. That's not one new fan. That's awesome. Is that each businesses, they have divisions, and each division has a budget, and each division is supposed to make money in and of itself. They don't borrow from Fox News to subsidize Fox Sports. They don't borrow from Fox Sports to subsidize the UFL. They already have in the investment that they put into it, and they've said we're not putting any more into it that we haven't already committed. So, there's arguments on both sides about labor and business and corporate greed and all that, and this probably isn't the show for that, but it is what it is. The players and the coaches mostly showed up, and we got 4 games. So, do you want to start with probably the most interesting game of the week, which was the last game of the weekend, or do you want to go in chronological order?
I think we start from the top, work our way to the end, and end with what's interesting. I think if we want to really just talk from a high level, it was a lot of mismatches to start the week until we get to the end. And maybe what we should really start at when we're talking about the top is really before we dive into individual games, what was the biggest surprise that you saw, and what was the biggest letdown you saw? I know for me, it's 2 distinct things.
Well, let me start with something that I saw as a positive. I believe that all 8 teams started with a running play, and there definitely seemed to be much more of a commitment to trying to establish and stick with the running game throughout week 1. And last year, we didn't see much of that. There was almost no running game to be spoke of. So that's a positive. On the other side of things, I'm not sure that the quality of play has improved that much, even with teams who are mostly still together, and it's their second year in the same systems or together, and attendance, which is really troubling. And I don't know if you want to talk about attendance right now, but I think it's interesting because the league announced the paid attendance, but
not what actually showed up.
Right. And in the world of wrestling, that has become a controversy known as the turnstile count, which is tickets scanned that go in. So let's just.
And I think we don't need to necessarily talk about it at length. And the one thing that we should note is that it made absolutely positively 0 sense for the home opener to be in Houston while the University of Houston is playing in the Sweet 16, one of the biggest basketball games of their season in the last decade. I don't know how you expect the local citizens and fans to come out, and it kind of showed. I mean, it was quiet, it was empty. I think they said the attendance was around 7,000. I was like, there's no way. There might have been 400 people in the stands at one point in time. So we don't necessarily need to talk in depth. I think there was some poor planning. I think there might have been some poor luck. And I think they also might have picked the wrong cities. to have home games for the first game. But maybe we can jump into in each individual game, just say the number and let people judge their own and make their own conclusions from it.
But actually, some of the points you just made are really do lend themselves to this particular game, because not only was Houston in the Sweet 16, but I believe the Astros were also playing that night as well. And what was going on?
I believe it was their first home series of the season too.
Right.
I believe it was their first time for their fans to come out and see a game. So it doesn't make any sense.
And St. Louis is the only city that's been consistently delivering you fans. And if you want to make a first impression, why would you take anything even if there was nothing else going on in Houston whatsoever? Why wouldn't you put the opener in St. Louis when people might be checking out the UFL for the first time on Friday night Fox in prime time? They got nothing to do. They're used to watch SmackDown. Maybe they're not basketball fans. They hear football's on. I'll check it. Even if they're just flipping back and forth from basketball or baseball to football to check out what's going on, see what's. I mean, don't you want them to see a stadium that? I mean, let's face it. Even 35,000, the stadium isn't full, but it's not embarrassing. That's a good
and
show.
you just need to get the lower bowl full. You don't even need to get the upper decks. Just get the lower area full. Yeah, so not even full, just compressed.
Yeah. So for a league who took a lot of hard lines with stuff, they seem to forget like one half of their brain was thinking and the other half of their brain wasn't thinking, because St. Louis was the obvious choice, bar anything going on in Houston, and picking Houston on that particular night just seemed to be doubly stupid. And it's not like Houston's not going to have warm weather going forward. Houston always has warm weather. It's on the frickin' Gulf of Mexico.
North America.
Yeah, the Gulf of North America. There we go. The Gulf of all the Americas. Well, that's not even all the Americas. All right.
But I think real quick before we get into it, because I just want to make a counterpoint to what you said about the run games too. Because I think when you look at everything that happened, I mean, at the end of the day, first off, I mean, it was on paper 4 mismatches, and 3 of the 4 mismatches played out. Well, I'll leave it there for now. But I mean, when you look at it, I just think it was poor planning from start to finish. And I mean, when you have the quarterbacks holding out, you have coaches switching out, you barely had a training camp. I mean, players reported 3 weeks before the first game. It's you're not going to have high quality football. And so I think you need the run game. And that's what we saw. I mean, we saw an emphasis on the run game, but it wasn't because the run game was better. It's not because coaches wanted to run the ball. It's because they needed to run the ball. I mean, you have quarterbacks who are taking their first snaps with these guys. They barely, I mean, Alex Magoo got signed 6 days ago, and he's out there starting and playing every single snap. And you think that he's going to be able to lead the team down at the end of the game with a 2-minute drill and no timeouts? I mean, you have to run the ball because these guys, they don't know the call signs. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to function within the system with these coaches who they've probably never played for and they've known for 3 weeks. So you have to run the ball. And I think when we talk about the first game of the season, I think the running game is really what defined that total game. So I guess that kind of sets you up there to start introducing the first game of the season.
Yeah, so it was St. Louis, as you said, as we've mentioned. Danny Garcia was there along with some other executives, but The Rock was not there. So I don't know if we should read anything into that at all. I don't know if The Rock, there's a whole lot of speculation about what The Rock's ownership interest is in this, if at all, or if he's completely cashed out or whatever. But he made a big deal about being at the games year one. And this year, him not being there feels like a big deal. Now, he's sort of pulling the same thing on WWE, so maybe he's doing movies and all that, and he's got perfectly legit excuses, but not even like a video message that you can put on the Jumbotrons or the Titantrons. I mean, that was so the official attendance at Houston was 7,124. That's how many tickets were sold. As you said, there might have been 400 people in that stadium. And this is like a full, this is a college football team stadium. And if it was more than 400, it wasn't more than 700 scattered in that place. But I think 400 is a pretty darn good estimate, which means like if you're a vendor or a parking attendant or anybody, if you're security, if you're the cops who called there, if you're the EMTs who need to be, you're like, I am wasting my time right now.
No, it's the easiest day of work.
Well, if you're getting overtime, if you're the cop and the EMT, then absolutely. If you're the vendor who works on tips,
well, then you're wasting your time. Yeah. No, not at all. And what's crazy to me is I don't understand why the tickets are seat by seat. I mean, you should understand at this point in time, after one season, after minimal interest leading into the season. I mean, I don't want to negate their legitimacy. But I mean, they still haven't built a loyal fan base yet. It hasn't reached the masses. You would think that maybe they would do something to change it. And I don't understand why the tickets aren't GA. That way people at least are sitting in the first few rows so you can have the cameras make it look a little bit more filled. Why aren't they giving out tickets to local schools and organizations and reaching out to the community so people are interested in the sport? Oh my God, they did so much good charitable work in my area. Now I'm going to go support the league for their $20 tickets and watch some football in spring. I mean, to me, it's just the simple things, the little things. It almost feels like they feel like they have an established brand and it's not there. And then when you see the football in the field, I mean, it's great that football's back. I mean, it's awesome. And when we saw St. Louis flying around the field, running the ball down their throat and making huge hits on defense, it's great to see, especially in March. But are people going to keep tuning in when you're seeing mismatch beatdowns and there's not even a crowd environment? I mean, the crowd environment is half of the joy of the sport.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And we said this last year, give free tickets out to every single high school football team within a 20-mile radius, go to every college football team, go to the Boys and Girl Scouts, go to every church, synagogue, mosque, and house of worship within 20 miles, and then give free tickets the week before. Just give them out. And, and if you need
let them do the halftime show, like at a basketball game when they invite local organizations to dance for the halftime show or play a little game. I mean, use the community.
Yeah. Whatever the get out the vote thing is, where you have all those buses shuttling people, get that and use that. Fill those stadiums in, because it's a visual thing at this point. Okay, this is another nitpick, and it's a perfectly nice thing, but the person who sang the national anthem was a NASA employee. Okay, it's nice. NASA's down there, that Houston used to control, but how about a real singer?
I mean, that's a little thing. I mean, maybe there's a deeper story behind it that we're not aware of. Maybe there's some ties to the community that we're not fully knowledgeable on. So I won't go judging. I mean, I feel like the national anthem can be a multitude of things. I've seen people not even sing it and, do noises with their mouth for it. So there's different renditions. I mean, but yes, I do. If we're trying to run a legitimate sports operation, and sports operation these days are entertainment organizations, you would think you would have high quality entertainment.
I have two corollary thoughts. One is, if it really was about the local area and NASA, you would have had an entire section full of NASA employees and their families there that they could have put on camera all the time, and all wearing like their NASA, like your jacket, the hoodie you're wearing is sort of like military style. They would all have their NASA style, outfit on for the appropriate, weather, or, NASA roughnecks, hats made up for them or something. And you'd see 600 people there in the same section cheering, going crazy. Wasn't there. The other thing is, doesn't Fox have one of those shows, American Idol, America's Got Talent, the Masked Singer, something? So why don't they just bring in that person to sing it, to tie into their own show?
And when Fox is the owner, I'm sure that they can make a little phone call. Hey, we need to make sure that our people are here. Let's use this opportunity, this national broadcast slot, to promote our own programs from within. And so I absolutely see what you're saying. I think this national anthem, no disrespect to our country, is the least important part of the game, because we're here to talk the football itself, and that's just a nice intro to it. I didn't hear the national anthem. I'll be honest. I was listening to the basketball broadcast, and I had the game on mute on the other TV. Yes, I have 2 TVs set up in the living room. It comes in clutch for a time like this. But I think I vote enough anthem talk.
Okay. So, all right. So the starting quarterback for St. Louis, as we know, we chronicled A.J. McCarron, still not being signed by anybody. The quarterback was Manny Wilkins for St. Louis, and he started with, and they started the game off with a 4-yard run from Jacob Saylor. So, we thought that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, they turned over on downs, but Wilkins showed that he's pretty mobile. He's pretty tough. They committed to the run. And on the Houston side, their quarterback was Anthony Brown. He was also expected to be, bring some continuity and a mobile element to the team. They started with the run as well, so that was good. But the second play, He threw a pass. It was tipped up and was intercepted by St. Louis. So St. Louis got the ball back almost immediately. And Sailors ran in for an early touchdown, 6-0. In continuing the theme of extra point attempts being missed, the extra point attempt was, of course, missed. So, despite that, Manny Wilkins, I think he showed some stuff. I might be imagining things, but I remember week one getting a vibe that the team didn't really like AJ McCarron. I very much got the vibe that they liked Manny Wilkins.
Yeah, and I think we detailed it almost weekly last year with AJ McCarron. It's like the guy's clearly talented. The team around him is clearly good, but it just didn't feel like there was a buy-in. It didn't feel like he had a good relationship with his head coach, Anthony Beck. It didn't feel natural. And I have to say, Manny Wilkins last year, he started, I believe it was week 7 and 8, might have been 6 and 7. But he started 2 weeks when AJ McCarron was out injured, and he looked not that great. I mean, he did not provide confidence going into the season that he's the right option to be their quarterback. And I have to say, after week 1, I think he killed all those narratives. He was extremely impressive. I think, and a theme that we'll see as we talk more about these games is there's a lot of mobile quarterbacks in this league. And I think, especially in week 1, as we talk about, these teams are going to need to run the ball to start the flow of their offense. His ability to move around in the pocket, his poise, and his not eagerness, but his willingness to leave the pocket and scramble, and then also his ability to pull it on a read option and take it, I think added a very dynamic element that they didn't have last year. And you see it in the stat sheet. And if I remember correctly, Hakeem Butler was very quiet last year in week 1 as well, but he didn't even receive a catch. Or I don't even know if he was targeted.
I think he was only targeted maybe 3 times.
Yeah, I remember there was one play when I did have the audio going where in the huddle, you listened in and they basically said, "This is coming to you, Hakeem." And we get on the field and Manny says, "Hey, 10, the ball's coming to you. Hey, 10, ready." And then they looked for him and they couldn't find him. I'm like, all right. And that's credit to the cornerback. I'm forgetting the cornerback that Houston had. He's a 6'2" guy. He was a big guy and he did really well, but he was not involved. And that's he was an MVP last year. And so they're only going to keep getting better is basically what I'm trying to get at. I mean, their running game looked great between Manny Wilkins being able to move around, Jacob Sailors doing what he did, continuing his great season from last year. I mean, he dabbled in the NFL. I believe it was maybe the Giants and the Browns he spent a little bit of time with, and now he's back to the UFL. He was an all UFL running back last year, and he showed it. Just reading his stats here, 16 of 98, 1 touchdown, 25 was his long, so he was averaging 6 yards per carry. So outside of that big carry at the start of the game, I mean, he was very consistently tripping in. And then I know you thought Jarvian Howard, who looked an awful lot like Alex Collins to me, rest in peace. He had a great game. I mean, he was 13 for 115 and a touchdown with the longest 74 yards. So they really leaned on that running game. And then you look at their passing stats, and they were able to get Ja'Cour Pearson back involved. I mean, he was a big star that they've had around for a number of years now. So he played a good role. Jacob Sailors played a great role out of the backfield. I mean, they did a really good job of utilizing their weapons, keeping the offense simple, and just moving down the field and getting first downs. Now, I will say this with the Houston Roughnecks before I pass the rock back over to you. They did end up splitting quarterbacks. I'm sure you're going to get to that when you talk about the second half. But I don't think it was necessarily what they intended. I know there were talks about them doing a 2-quarterback system, but it definitely seemed like they wanted Anthony Brown to be the guy. But Nolan Henderson worked in. And even though the stats might look a little bit better, that might deceive you. They both really, really struggled. Those are 2 guys that both played on the Ravens practice squad in training camp. Know them pretty well. They're both local to the Maryland area when it comes to their college career, and they struggled. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They looked overmatched, and I don't know if it was an offensive line issue. I don't know if it's because they couldn't start running the ball, but they looked very, very limited in this game.
I think what most people want to know is they want to know what's going on in the back of your head. Is the mullet still there or is the mullet gone? Because the mustache no longer stands alone.
Well, I just got a haircut. The mullet's there. It's a little cleaner. It's a little bit more tightly knit. I asked the barber to line me up and, do whatever to do to make it look good. And he asked me how I wanted it styled. And me, as a not really a big facial hair guy, I just said yes. And it came out looking like this. He did like a little gradient. So the mustache is still here, but there's a little bit more of the Fu Manchu or whatever it's called. I don't know. I'm probably going to shave it all off. I like the distinct mustache a little bit better. But it was worth a try. You got to let the barber do his artistic work.
No. I mean, listen, it's a giant improvement over just the porn stash. So, I mean,
Yes, maybe we'll get it to curl. I mean,
oh yeah, you need to get that beard oil going. So yeah,
I refuse.
you did touch on something there that is definitely true. It was my next note is that St. Louis, really their offense reminded me of like a mid '80s Giants offense. It was very safe. It was dink and dunk, a lot of swing and screen passes, and they were effective with that.
Very
Chikor,
smart.
had more receptions and was more involved in the game than Hakeem Butler. Now whether that will cause defenses to alter their strategy, which gives Butler more opportunities down the line, perhaps. But the game is about matchups. But whatever it is, it was working. So Wilkins, as we talked about, he was a dynamo. He had a rush touchdown, extra point missed, of course. Brown on the other side, he had a pretty good scramble, but he in his second offensive play, he threw another interception. So I definitely don't think that the second quarterback was planned. I think it was panic, and I don't really blame them for the panic because the game was not lost. We've seen in the UFL crazy things happening, but so there was a point in this game midway through the first half where Manny Wilkins was perfect. He was 8 for 8 with 94 yards. Now those stats may not sound a lot, but he was still perfect, and I think he ended the game, being
Not
something
much
like
worse.
yeah, of course, but I think his completion rate
17 of 22, 77.3 completion percentage.
yeah, it was like
So very, very good.
80%, and so very effective, very Trent Dilfer like if efficient, stay within himself, but he also could run. So unlike Trent Dilfer or Phil Simms from the Giants or Troy Aikman for the Cowboys, this guy can also
Got that threat.
move with his legs. So it's
Absolutely.
actually a fairly interesting combination to me. There was a long field goal from Blankenship, a 48-yard field goal, and then there was a 33-yard field goal because Houston couldn't do anything with the ball. It was 18-0 at the half. Brown at that point, Anthony Brown, was 5 for 10 with 21 yards and 2 interceptions. I think he actually threw more passing yards to the other team.
Yeah, and unfortunately, and I mean, Anthony Brown's a wildly talented guy. I might get this wrong. I think he was University of Virginia Tech, something in that area. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, but I mean, he's a very, very talented guy. He has the physical traits. I mean, when you compare him to Nolan Henderson, who replaced him, he's a little bit bigger, might have a little bit more power in his arm, might be a little bit more of a physical runner. But he can do a little bit of everything. And I mean, he's a guy who's shown a little bit of sparks. I mean, with the Ravens, he had a couple of good drives looking in the preseason where people were like, okay, maybe he's a guy that could stick around. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to, but he struggled. It was decision making, it was precision, it was timing, it was lack of blocking, lack of a running game. I mean, like I said before, he was a little bit lost, and I think the Houston defense is the only thing that kept them from allowing 40, 50 plus points to the St. Louis team, who I'll just say it now, is my very early season favorite. I think that they are by far the best team in the league.
Okay, interesting. A little early for me to be prognosticating on that, but they can't argue with the result. So we get to the second half, and as you point out, Nolan Henderson is in that quarterback for Houston. So both coaches used a coach's super challenge in the second half. Coach Beck won his. It was a challenge of a non-pass interference call being against Hakeem Butler. So, if you want to count Hakeem Butler being in the game, that was a pretty substantial call at a successful super challenge, so he didn't lose a timeout. Meanwhile, Coach Johnson had a super challenge, also saying that there wasn't a call, and he, of course, as always, lost his call and a timeout. So there you go. And in that super challenge win, they converted that with Wilkins having another touchdown rush, 24-0. They missed the extra point again. Then they put Dugan in at quarterback just to keep Wilkins healthy. I mean, that the traditional reason why you put in a second quarterback that's not an injury is just to make sure somebody stays healthy. We did have some sparks from Houston. Justin Hall caught a touchdown, but I don't know if it was a good play or if it was one of those prevent defenses or what. The extra point was missed in that case. And so, there was a little bit of that. So they're still stuck at 6. Jarvion Howard had a long touchdown rush. I think at the time it broke the record for the longest UFL rushing touchdown ever, which I mean is all of one season and one game, but still.
For a brief moment, he held the record.
For a brief moment here, it was a great run. Got us to 30-0. The extra point for 1 was good, and this was Dugan rushing in for 1. So Dugan with his legs pushing the ball forward, 31.
And not to interrupt you, but Dugan is a very, very good quarterback. I was honestly surprised to not see him start. And I think he has the quality to start in a league like this. I mean, he's a very good quarterback. We'll talk about some of the quarterbacks that I don't think are very good as well later. But Dugan is a starting level quarterback in this league. And I think his few drives definitely prove that.
Well, there's trades in this league, and maybe trade bait there. Now that I think they should have full faith and confidence in Wilkins. I know it's only one game. Maybe it's a little bit early to say that, but I mean, he seemed to be very in control of everything.
Oh, you let him keep playing for certain.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't question. I'd like to see more than one game before I'm sold for the rest of the season, before I start trading my backup. But c'est la vie. Anyway, at this point, it was 31-6. And Houston, so I had it the wrong order. Justin Hall's touchdown came after the 31 points was scored. And then because it's in the fourth quarter and they're behind, instead of kicking the ball away, Houston went for a 4th and 12, which is, what they should have done. But they missed it.
The purpose of it.
Yeah. They missed it, but there was a face mask by St. Louis, so it turned into a first down. So I guess it was successful in the end, but it didn't matter. It didn't convert. That was the time ran out on them. And Houston, there's still a problem going back to last year. Game over, 31-6. A true shellacking in every way, shape, and form of the game. The only thing that I can say for Houston is that they didn't give up the big play to the big wide receivers in the backfield, but they gave up everything else.
Their defense had little moments. I hate to throw the coach under the bus, but Coach C.J. Johnson, I mean, he looked overmatched. He looked confused at times. They would put him on the camera, and I was like, this does not look like a guy that looks like a typical head coach. I mean, he had no fire in his eyes. He didn't seem to be motivating his players. He didn't look confident. And there's no reason to look confident when you're down that bad, but I mean, there's wins that you can take out of a game like that. And it didn't seem like he was trying to find a way to get the wins. I think he was struggling just as much as the team was. And that could just be me. I'm not on the sideline. I'm not watching the field and the game in depth to the extent of studying the film and, listening to the interviews of the individual players and what they might be saying. But to me, I got the vibe that it was a little bit of a daunting task. That's how I'll leave it there.
Some coaches you see frustrated coach face. Skip Holtz, you can see on his face and his body language. Definitely, there are definitely coaches but Wade Phillips is a guy that usually he looks the same whether he's happy or sad, and maybe Coach Johnson is the same way. That said, after seeing Coach Johnson now for 10 games last year and one game, 11 games, I have not been impressed by him. I don't know why they traded for him back, and there was some deal. I guess the deal struck was not what we thought it was and not what was reported. It must be that he agreed not to be a head coach for another arena league team, something like that. I don't know why anybody. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be too smarmy about it. I just don't know why you'd want to keep the lock and camp. Maybe arena is the game that he has the best feel for, but I don't want to bury him too much. The stats are doing that, and the score spoke for itself. So let's move on to the Saturday afternoon game, and that was San Antonio at Arlington. We talked about the published attendance. So how many people do you think was actually in Arlington? The home base.
I think more than Houston, unfortunately. I felt like it was. I think when I was watching, I turned to my room and I was like, I think it might only be about 3,000 to 5,000 people there. I think they reported closer to 10.
Oh, they did. I'm not even sure there were 2,000 people in there. I'm not sure, but yeah, they reported the 10,114 people.
Yeah.
And mind you, Arlington
two purchased.
Yeah, Arlington is the home of the UFL. All of the teams live and practice in Arlington. So if there's one community that should get, even if they hate the Renegades, you would think they would have adopted one of the teams just because, say the Roughnecks or the Brahmas all hang out together and they go to the same bar, restaurant, steakhouse, whatever. You'd think that they would have sown some goodwill. Now, they probably don't do that much, because one of the perks of the league is they do actually feed the players in their dorms. So I guess if you're not making that much money, you eat for free. So why not?
$55,000 for the season's plenty, if you ask me. They still have the whole rest of the year if the money is bad to get a job, but you can live off $55,000 a year. I mean, obviously it's not ideal or easy, but they make $55,000 for a couple games a year is pretty good. I won't go into that further.
Well, you point out that a bunch of these players did make it for a certain amount of time on NFL teams, on practice squads or scouting teams, or even into the main roster. Even if they ultimately got cut, even if they played for 3 weeks, they're still getting NFL minimum salaries. Which, I mean, I know that the collective bargaining agreement is very complicated, but I think that the NFL minimum is something like $770,000.
Yeah, and even the practice squad guys, if they get called up, they make pretty good. Just for the individual game, I think it's like $150,000 for a practice squad guy if they get called up. So they make pretty good money.
Yeah, so and then it was 78 people, not 400 or however many players are in the UFL. But and like you said, you could do other jobs and things like that. And there are professional football leagues. Some of the players play in the CFL. Some of them go to various arena leagues. There's a pro football league in Mexico. There's one in China. There's Europe. So I mean, there are other places. I mean, it's a bit of a nomad life. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, and you can also kind of make your own brand. Like, look at a guy like Destroying. I mean, I actually didn't really watch too much of his documentary last year during the season, but I watched his documentary, the first 2 parts of it. I'm pretty sure the third part should be coming out soon, but I mean, it's really good. He's making his own brand. Him and Brad Wing, the punter on the Brahmas, who I guess we can dive into the game a little bit more, but they live in the same house together, and it's really well made. And they themselves are creating their own brand. They themselves are bringing a fan base for themselves. And there's things that can be done to compensate them. And a guy like Destroying, who I get it, he already has a big fan base, so that makes it a little bit of a cheat code. But there's things that can be done as well to supplement your income, and in turn will help the league. And the league has supported and promoted his series big time. So if you do something like that, the league has shown that they'll get back behind it. So, yeah. But that's enough money talk. I think we should talk about the game. And I think when we talk about the game, I mean, I'm going to just take the reins instead of going just overall, how it went for the game. I mean, it was a beatdown. I mean, San Antonio stood no chance. They were my underdogs last year. And from start to finish, I mean, Arlington just seemed to have the upper hand. And when you look at the game, I mean, Luis Perez is the quarterback of Arlington. Kellen Mond is the quarterback of Brahmas. Luis Perez is coming back. He looks pretty good. I think he actually threw the most out of any quarterback over the entirety of the weekend. And he didn't look amazing, but he didn't look bad at all. But for Arlington, again, it was a running game. It was Caleb Lodge, former Miami Dolphins player, who absolutely just tore up the defense every time he got the ball. He is the said player who stole the record from Jarvian Howard the day after he got it, 77-yard touchdown run. And when you look at the game, I mean, it truly was a beatdown. I mean, most of what the Brahmas were able to accomplish when the game was basically over. And I think when you look at it, I mean, Arlington didn't have to do too much, I feel like. And I think when you look at the Brahmas, they left a lot on the table. I mean, Kellen Mond, he's a mobile guy. He didn't seem comfortable to me because I was shocked that he didn't run the ball more. And he missed a lot of open receivers. And granted, Arlington's defense is very good, so I don't want to just necessarily on what was done against Arlington. But, I mean, Arlington was in complete control from start to finish, and the final score of 33-9 justifies that and shows exactly what kind of game it was.
It's really true. San Antonio last year was a surprise team to me and to others. They were very creative. They were very unpredictable. They did a lot of trick plays. They took a lot of risks. They were interesting and fun to watch. This team did none of those things. The only thing they went for an early 4th down conversion with 5 to go, which was a little ballsy, but other teams have done that, and they missed it. But they didn't even try an exciting or interesting play there either, which, everything's always hindsight. One thing I want to dump on Luis Perez a little bit, because he wrote a book called The Spring King. And who the hell wants to read Luis Perez's book? And what kind of a braggart is it that he's the Spring King? I mean, first of all, he hasn't even won a championship in the spring. It's always been Birmingham. So he's not even the Spring King. He's the Spring Joker. I mean, what is this?
But this goes back to what we were just saying. These guys are trying to monetize it. Like, I give him credit. He's trying to build his brand. He's trying to make some money. I mean, it might sound worse than it is. I don't know what the book's going to really do. I haven't read it, so I won't make any judgment or statements on it. But that's what you want from these guys. You want them promoting themselves and marketing it. So, and yes, he's no more than a spring quarterback, it seems, at this point. I mean, he's the veteran in this league. Even in the NFL, he could go in and be relatively old for the quarterback position. So I think at this point, Luis Perez knows what he is. He's a guy that's going to be able to keep one of these spring league offenses moving and hopefully provide some opportunities for some of the targets that he has on his team. And I think he did that. I mean, they didn't really need to throw the ball very much. Sal Canelo was their leading receiver, and he was the guy that they had last year. So the two of them already had a pretty good rep. They actually brought back a lot of their offense. I mean, Deontay Burnett, Tyler Vaughn's, a couple other names I recognize. But for them, the difference maker was truly the running game. And when you look at it, the Brahmas last year, and last year the Brahmas leaned on their running game, and they got nothing out of it. So credit to Arlington. They've got a good trio of running backs. The Brahmas, McFarland and Lovett are the two that we remember from last year. Lovett was the bigger guy. McFarland's quicker, more shifty guy, receiving guy out of the back, University of Maryland alum. But they also have Jay Sean Corbin. So they have a good triple header, whatever. And Caleb Lamont can run too, even though he didn't really show it. And they just couldn't get it going.
Yeah, well, Mond means world. It felt like he had the whole, Mond, I mean, world or mountain, but it felt like he had the whole world on him, and it wasn't for him. I have a conspiracy theory about Luis Perez, because there was talk that he wasn't going to come back. They was going to retire from spring football. And I think the league said, we're going to mention your book on every single game and every single halftime for the entire season. We're going to do commercials for your book. And he's like, yeah, all right, I can play one more year. So
he makes another $55,000.
Yeah, and we'll sell 55 books. So good for him. All right. I just,
sounds like $550.
Again, well, it depends if he's self-published. Anyway, and we'll do a deeper dive into his book another time. But yeah, I mean, some familiar players
next week.
Yeah, I mean, Kellen Belange was a stud. Isaiah Winstead's back. Davion Smith was playing. Burnett, as you mentioned. So yeah, I mean, they had Davion Smith. Had a bunch of scores in this as well. So
but guess how many total yards he had?
Arlington, how many total yards?
No, Davion Smith. He scored 3 touchdowns. How many yards? How many carries do you think he had?
Probably like 48.
He had 3 carries for 3 yards.
Okay.
He was their goal line guy. Which makes sense. Caleb Belange is definitely he's 6'1", but he's definitely a quicker guy. He's a guy that you want getting out of space, not necessarily on the goal line. And they use Data Hunter a lot too, as well in the running game. He didn't play as well as Belange, but I think that they have a lot of breadth and a lot of targets. And before we move on, real quick, I will just mention for San Antonio, because I do think that they have the ability to turn around their season. Jake Harris had a good game. UTF alum. He's definitely a good downhill threat. He had 4 catches for 63 yards. 6 targets. They tried to get Jontre Kirkland involved, and it just didn't really come to fruition. But the biggest thing that really disappointed me from their offense was, one, I thought that they would use Anthony McFarland a little bit more. They seemed to really fall in love with him at the end of last season. And the lack of Marquez Stevenson, who's a big star for them. He didn't even touch the ball. So he got 1 target. I mean, if he's one of your best targets and one of your best speedsters, you got to get him the ball. And he was a big part of their offense last year. So I think there's more dramas to tap into, but they were extremely disappointing this past weekend.
Yeah, Anthony McFarland was, for a little bit, the one bright spot. He had a pass reception, and then he followed that with a 31-yard, very hard-fought run. He turned on that afterburners. Your man Dillahay destroying, had a field goal, so his first field goal
since high school.
Since high school, right? So there was some bright spots, but I don't know. St. Louis looked pretty solid. They looked pretty solid in every part of the game. Their running game was on, their passing game was on, their defense was solid and strong. So, they look solid. And San Antonio, they just look like completely flustered, which is the opposite of last year when they looked like what they were doing was going to fluster whoever they were playing against. Like you didn't know what they were going to do. San Antonio's uniform San Antonio still has the nicest looking uniforms in the league, though. I like their color.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, very bright.
Definitely. They have style.
All right, so next we go to another game with Michigan at Memphis. Memphis, one of my preseason least favorites, them and Houston, who finished, as the two worst teams in the league last year, in my view, are going to finish as two of the worst teams this year as well. Yeah,
you're absolutely correct. I mean, the Memphis and Houston are just by far. I think you have a very clear top four, very clear top two, pretty clear next two. Then you have the two teams that are going to be competitive but not good enough, and then you have the two teams that are way at the bottom, and that's Memphis and Houston. I mean, we could do a power ranking at the end. That those two, it's going to be hard to figure out who's the worst.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that if we had made our predictions last week, we would have both gone 3-1.
I did go 3-1 actually.
Well, so did I.
Myself. Yeah. We'll get to the last game in a minute. That's the only game that I got wrong on my prediction.
Yeah, me too. And then if anyone doesn't, you can go to my Twitter at @dose_evil, and I made predictions either Mike Mitchell or James Larson or Anthony Stein. One of the usual beat reporters put their predictions in, and I just put same or me too or something like that, and it's exactly that. All right, so Michigan and Memphis, the reported attendance there 4,373, which first of all, I mean there wasn't anywhere near that in the stadium, but Memphis is the one market where they made a concerted effort to market to the city and the town to get people there. And even in the bloated nature of bought tickets versus bodies in the stadium, even that was pitiful. So I don't know if there's going to be a year 3 on this league. Memphis has to be a place you need to leave.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've talked about it before. I mean, places like Canton, Ohio. I mean, the Hall of Fame's there. That would be a great place to put a team. I mean, there's a number of places that might be a little bit more regionally friendly, or if they're going to expand, you can open up your eyes a little bit. Maybe go to some other cities, Philly, New York, some big markets, and that would help you. But I mean, it was abysmal, and I get it. If I was a fan of Memphis, I mean, I wouldn't go to the game either. Their team is abysmal. It would, no disrespect, men. I mean, they just seriously lacking. I mean, you see all these other teams with lots of different NFL talents. You see guys that played really, really high level last year in the UFL. And I mean, you look at Memphis's roster. I mean, they have one guy on offense that's proven in the UFL to have success in Jonathan Adams. And then when you look at it on defense, I mean, I'm just going to go through some of the stats here just to make sure I'm not missing anybody. But yeah, I mean, PJ Hall is like the only guy that's really, and Obi Melifonwu. I mean, you got 2 guys with NFL experience, with 3 guys really told, maybe 4 if you include Nate McCrary, who spent some practice squad time. I mean, they have very limited high level talent, but we're talking about NFL level. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about some of these players. It's crazy because I know a lot about most of these players. And so when I look at it, maybe these guys are more local. And maybe that's what it is. But if they're more local, I would expect more people to come out and support them. And that's not what we need. And if they're going to keep playing the way that they're going to play, I don't think those numbers are going to go up.
Yeah, I agree with you. So the highlight of this game for me was that the commentator was Joe Tessitore, who is the commentator for WWE SmackDown, along with Wade Barrett. So
he's on SmackDown now?
Yep, he's on SmackDown now. He started with Raw. Now they moved him over to SmackDown. I don't know how permanent that is, but anyway, Joe Tessitore, whose voice reminds me of a combination of Mean Gene Okerlund meets young Vince McMahon. So very happy to see and hear Joe Tessitore with his little side hustle there. So that was fun. Nevertheless, that should not be the highlight of a game for me. So the quarterbacks were Bryce Perkins from Michigan, who we saw him last year. He had some moments. Michigan had sort of like 3 decent quarterbacks this year. They seem to be settled on one. That's a good idea. EJ Perry, who was one of those 3 quarterbacks, is now the starting quarterback for Memphis. And they made a big deal about him being a former Panther and if he would recognize coverages and plays callings and all of that. Both teams, as I pointed out, did start with a run. You already pointed to Nate McCrary, the running back on Michigan, who spent some time with the Broncos and the Ravens, of course. Michigan, in the beginning of this game, they looked like a pro offense. And I remember last year thinking they looked like a professional team. They opened the game, 32-yard field goal. That's very Ravens football-y. There was a kickoff that was almost turned over. Michigan's defense was tough the entire game. And then Perkins, he had moments when he was both good and reckless simultaneously with his feet. And he was not alone in that. We just haven't gotten to the next game. But he took a lot of chances that he didn't need to take, where he was holding the ball, who he was running into as opposed to running out of bounds or taking the slide. I mean, I do appreciate that these guys this is a tryout for them to impress another league, but you're not going to do that if your knee is taken out from under you. So
yeah, but you got to give him credit. I mean, and full disclaimer. I mean, I watched the first quarter and the fourth quarter. Luckily, I was playing basketball second and third quarter, and it rained, so I was able to get back for the fourth. But I was only able to watch the beginning and some highlights in between. But I mean, stats make Bryce Perkins look very good. I know the visuals weren't always amazing on the field, but he went 16 of 19, 163 yards, a touchdown, and 84% is that completion percentage, and he had the highest quarterback rating of the week at 120. So the numbers end up actually showing pretty favorably for him, and that doesn't include him pitching in a rushing game. He had another touchdown there. The rest of his numbers were amazing. He is another mobile guy.
He rushed in the extra point also.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a mobile guy, and he showed it. He has a dynamic arm, and he's in a quarterback battle with Danny Etling. Danny Etling played a little bit there, but it definitely seems like Bryce Perkins has the upper hand, even though Etling's a pretty good quarterback. I mean, that's the guy that played a little bit with the Patriots as well. But I'll let you keep going with the narratives of the game.
Yeah, so it was 10-0, and Memphis, either because of a plan or because they were also panicky, they put in Troy Williams at quarterback. He found some success. Then he got sacked and ended up on the 28-yard line. But he did lead Memphis to a 50-yard field goal. So, okay, it all counts. And then they brought Perry back in at quarterback, which was a little bit strange. But I guess they're committing to somebody. And he was under a lot of pressure, and there was and threw an interception. So at this point, we're at the 2-minute warning, but Michigan goes 3 and out. It looked that the backup quarterback, Danny Etling, might have been hurt as he was playing a set, but he shook it off and walked it in, or walked off the field on his own power. There was a mixed attempt by Michigan for a 56-yard field goal. Maybe they're missing Jake Bates. He's one of the few that made it to the NFL. Nakua had a 25-yard touchdown reception, making it 16-6. Memphis responded with, Nakua looked pretty good. The extra point was actually good, so 17-6. Memphis, I sort of skipped over Memphis hitting a 45-yard field goal in there. And then Michigan sort of got another field goal, which was 43 yards. They missed a 50-yard field goal, so they had 2 missed field goals in the game. Jonathan Adams gets into the game a little bit late for Memphis scoring a touchdown. The extra point led to an interception, so it was 20-12. Memphis, as they should at this point, tried a 4th and 12. It was incomplete. Troy Williams did finish the game at quarterback, and he threw an interception for pick 6. So the game ended 26-12.
You know who returned the pick 6 for me?
I didn't write it down.
And I think that's the big storyline here that we should tell. I mean, the Kua brothers, Puka's brothers, his older brother Kai and his little brother, at least little brother Samson, both on the same team, both scoring touchdowns, both playing pivotal roles. Kai Nakua was all UFL guy last year. He's had success both in the NFL and in the UFL XFL world, and he looks very, very good. And obviously, Samson played a pretty big role in their offense, and I think he'll have a pretty big role moving forward at the wide receiver position.
Well, this game was a mismatch throughout the entire game. It wasn't a blowout until very inside the 2-minute warning. So there is that. But the score makes it look further away from being a close game than it actually was. So And the only reason I harp on that is because I'm no longer sure that Memphis is the worst team in the league. I'm thinking Houston is, in fact, the worst team in the league, and then Memphis just does just enough to be the second worst team.
And I think the thing with Memphis, if we're talking positives, was the D line. I mean, they didn't get to the quarterback a lot, but their D line was in the backfield, hindering the running game and getting into passing lanes here and there. I think that's what really helped hinder Michigan's maybe efficiency and effectiveness. Because as you said, I mean, Michigan looks like a very pro team. They have two great running backs between Nate McCrary and Matt Colburn. And I think they could have done a little bit more. I think winning by 14 doesn't do them justice, but I think at the end of the day, you got to give credit where credit's due. Memphis's defense did show up, but their offense just worked.
And Michigan missed a couple field goals, but they were long field goals. And the reason they were long field goals is because Memphis's defense stood strong. So we'll give them credit. I mean, all of the defenses in this league are adequate at times. The offenses need to catch up. So,
and they will. I mean, just like the NFL, defenses typically start a little bit better at the beginning of the season as the offenses gel. So I think as we get through the season, the offenses will find more success. I think we'll see more from the passing game. I think the running game will get a little bit more dynamic. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the defense has definitely won overwhelmingly compared to the offense more times than not in one.
Yeah, offenses always catch up to defense. That's the way. Defense always starts off stronger. I do want to say one thing for all three of the games, and this includes and continues into the fourth game, is it was raining flags. So many penalties constantly. All of these teams just a little bit more than a little bit sloppy. A lot of penalties.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's to be expected. In week one, I think the penalties will go down for the year. I think we're talking not necessarily, again, I mean, it is a step down from the NFL, step up from college. So I think you have that, but I think you also have the differences in some of the rules where that changes some things. The one thing I will mention is that I do think super challenges were used a little bit better this year in week one than we saw them use last year. Last year, I don't think we really saw any win. I think we saw two successful this week. So that's one thing when it comes to the penalties where actually I do like. I guess that's more stoppage time, so it's kind of counterintuitive to having less penalties. But I do think the super challenge is something that might work in the NFL. Maybe work a little bit different of a way where the team doesn't necessarily give a super challenge. Maybe it's the booth that says, hey, I'm going to overrule this and do a super challenge. That's a different topic for a different day. But I do think that some of the things that are happening with the refs are good and better than what we see in the NFL.
Yeah, I think the refs are pretty good, and I like how calls can be questioned by the booth on their own and in Ref Central or Official Central. I like some of the things they do with tech. There's like a camera on one of the balls or something like that where you could follow. You could actually see what was going on in the scrum. I mean, you're just seeing hands and forearms going back and forth, but it's still interesting. Like it
really reminds me of VR. If you've ever had one of those headsets on and played the football game on it, it reminded me just of VR. I was watching it. I was like, oh my God, that's like the video game that I was playing. Like, it's pretty cool. It is. They do some really cool things, and the way that they let you hear the play calls. I mean, there are some things that you don't necessarily see NFL, college, really any level of sport, which makes it a much better broadcasting experience. And as a viewer from home, again, counterintuitive to getting butts in the seats. But I think I do really like that. They also need it because if you're not going to have people in the stands, you got to have a reason for people to watch. And so having some of these cool, intriguing things that might capture a football nerd's attention like me.
Mm-hmm. Like hearing a coach and a player having an exchange on the side and the sensor isn't quick enough to bleep out the S word or the F word that pops up. But I mean, it is interesting to hear how the coaches and the players talk to each other, especially the head coach and the quarterback, when they're talking about coverages and things like that. Very interesting. So our next game and the final game of the weekend is Birmingham, who has won all three spring pro football seasons, regardless of whatever league they're in, coming in as the overwhelming favorite. DC was probably considered the biggest disappointment last year, but I think they ended up at either 4-6 or 5-5. But I remember my preseason, I predicted Birmingham and DC to be in the championship game, early on. Granted, I didn't know jack or squat about the league, just what I read or heard or whatnot. But so DC comes in. So how many people do you think that you could eyeball were at DC Stadium? And I will grant that by far there were more people in DC Stadium than in any of the other stadiums.
And absolutely, I mean, there were more people and more passionate people. I don't know if they were surprised that they won or were doing well, or if they were just genuinely better fans than the other fan bases that we saw. But I mean, they definitely had the most active stadium, and they were definitely having the most fun. I would think not 10,000. I would maybe say 7, 8 ish were probably actually there. I would assume, and this one actually one of the few attendants totally don't know. I would assume they probably said it was like 11 or 12,000.
Yeah, they said 12,254. My eyeball, I think it was probably more like 6,000. You were at 8,000, so it was sort of in the definitely safely under 10,000, but 12,254 sold. So I guess good on DC for showing up. To the extent that DC showed up. Tale of two quarterbacks to an extent, though. I think actually these quarterbacks, as the game wore on, they were almost interchangeable. They have more in common than they have not in common. But DC returns Jordan Ta'amu, although their head coach, who just sort of became the head coach, Shannon Harris, gotta say, had a lot of poise. Seemed like a head coach. Didn't seem like somebody's third choice. He acted like he believed that he should have been there, and he proved that throughout the game. So kudos to that. I mean, they also have Greg Williams there, so that's a nice stabilizing.
Did he leave? I thought he left.
No, he's still there.
Okay. I thought he was leaving.
I think that I don't know that the story with TSU is quite over yet, but if I'm getting any of it right, I think that basically they're not doing much in the way of planning right now, and I think the deal is these guys will earn their full UFL salary. They'll have their health insurance for the season, and so then when they transition over to the TSU, they'll have no enrollment. They can just transition from one policy to another and start off there. I mean, I don't know the TSU. I don't know who else they play, but I don't know the TSU is really expecting to go be in the bowl championship series. So I think they're being pretty accommodating, and they're just excited to have this coaching staff, including some NFL people in there. That's mere speculation. So Magoo, as you said, it's spelled McGough, but it's Magoo. And listen, in the beginning, he looked great. He's fast. He's mobile. He finds the holes. He's hitting them. But as the game went on, his accuracy was all over the place. And he really loves to run, and he really believes in his legs, no matter how many sacks he takes for losses, like 25 yard losses.
Yeah, I mean, you see him get 3rd and 18s with his legs, and you're like, wow, I mean, this is pretty impressive. And then you see that he got 8 sacks, or he got sacked 8 times, and some of them were bad. I mean, there was one where it looked like he sacked himself almost. He slipped, and I mean, he was 25 yards back. I mean, you can't make it that easy for the defense. Again, I think I mentioned at the top, I mean, he signed maybe a week ago with the team. I was kind of surprised to see him taking the full array of snaps, having the full reign, really, of the offense. And I think there were bright spots. I don't want to say he was terrible, because I'm going to say I think Jordan Ta'amu was terrible. I've never been a fan of Jordan Ta'amu or really the DC Defenders roster. I think last year they were a very big I think they were a big letdown last year. And I think this year it's going to be a lot of the same. I don't know. There's something about the team that turns me off the wrong way. But, I mean, they put it together. They found a way to win. It was an ugly game. I mean, a very, very ugly game. It was sloppy. Both quarterbacks looked terrible. I mean, Magoo had more success on the ground. Ta'amu had some more success through the air. If you're going to look at just the stats, I think when you really give it the eye test, I don't think he looked as good. I don't think he looks confident back there. I don't think him and his receivers are on the same page. And I think that's also something that can be said with Magoo. But I think Magoo at least has the excuse that he's new to the team, whereas you do not get that excuse with Ta'amu, who's been there for over a year.
Yeah, I feel like Ta'amu, his 50% of good is spread out throughout the 4 quarters. I think Magoo's, 50% of good was mostly in the first half, and mostly in the second half he was terrible. I don't know if these guys get dead shoulders or something like that, or what the story is.
Oh, I would be surprised if he was just tired. He's coming off the streets playing football a full game.
Well, he played for Green Bay last year. He was like their emergency wide receiver, the Magoo, that is. I don't know. I'm a pretty big believer in Matt Corral. I
just had to check and make sure he was still there. I mean, the fact that he didn't play is shocking.
Yeah, and they have Case Cookus or Case. Yeah, I think that's his name.
Yeah,
as
Case Cookus.
I mean, I think towards the end I would have had. It was a close game, and it was low scoring. It was mostly field goals and non-sexy. But we had some familiar people. Person Jr. was playing. C.J. Marable had some plays. I mean, on the other side, Abram Smith came back for the DC Defenders to start, though at some point they took him out, and I remember seeing him take some really hard hits, and then his next run, he was like stumbling from the beginning, so I'm wondering if there wasn't an injury there.
Well, he's had a couple of knee injuries in his past, too, so that's something to definitely be concerned about, because he's a good player, very good player.
But Deion Jackson acquitted himself pretty well when he came in, so that's the second. So I don't know. I mean, we saw Roland. He caught a touchdown or a conversion. There was a guy named DeLelio who was in at quarterback for one play. I don't exactly know why. It looked like they wanted him to run, but basically he took 3 steps backwards and fell down. I don't get some of these decisions, but I mean, Skip Holtz. I mean, I know that he thinks his team can win at any time, but I probably would have put Corral in or even Cookus just to see if the team is more built for your traditional quarterback. I guess he was trying to recreate the magic of Adrian Martinez, who could win with his feet as well as his arm. But I mean, Magoo didn't know when to quit. I mean, he was feast or famine, but in a close game, the famine hurts you more than the feast if you assume that even an average quarterback is going to get 60% of their passes completed.
Well, the thing that and we've mentioned it, how the mobile quarterbacks definitely have an advantage in a league like this, and especially early in the year. But I mean, honestly, I don't know if Magoo was drafted or not. But Matt Corral definitely was drafted ahead of him. Matt Corral was a second-round pick. That is definitely something that carries some weight in my eyes. I mean, he was a high-level quarterback in college, had some great opportunities in the NFL, and that's a guy that can throw the ball. And when you look at, really how they got everybody involved, I mean, you missed a lot of their best receivers getting involved. Deion Kane was not involved at all. Amari Rodgers, not involved at all. Even the guys that were involved barely touched the ball. It didn't make sense. I mean, they're a team that's built to run the ball and then throw it right over the top. I mean, they've got weapons galore. And they weren't able to find a way to use any of the weapons at all. And it was very disappointing.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Magoo thought that he was the first option.
And I completely forgot their best player last year, Jay Sternberger, didn't even get a single catch.
Yeah, the only thing that there was a penalty that was called against, for pass interference on him. But yeah, he didn't get a catch either. So this game was 12-11 DC in DC's favor at the half. It was 15-11 going into the fourth quarter. DC with a couple of field goals, one very long, a 53-yard field goal. So it was 18-11 DC going into the fourth quarter. And Birmingham was very much marching it down the field. Looked like they could do whatever until Magoo just decided he would take long. Just keep it. No, don't throw it away. Just keep running backwards until somebody catches you. And that's a brain. That's not physical. That's those are brain farts.
Well, I don't know if that's decision making. I don't know if that's his eyes being bigger than his stomach, thinking that he's going to make these Superman plays. I mean, I don't know. It was rough. That second half was awful to watch. I mean, it was a miserable football game. I mean, it was sloppy. It was not high quality football. I mean, everything that we saw that was decent in the first half was gone. Credit to DC and their defense. DC's defense absolutely shut down Birmingham. I mean, again, Birmingham's really, really talented, and they just didn't find success. I really don't think DC is all that great. Matt McCrane and his right leg was what really won them that game, 4 for 4. Like you said, he had a 53-yarder. That's a guy with some NFL experience that really came in the clutch for them, and he looked like a guy that really could help a lot of NFL teams in their kicking game. But I mean, at the end of the day, you got to give credit to the DC defense. They were defending. Coaching staff for everything that they've gone through. Got to give them credit. What I will do, and just shout out here, I mean, they had a couple guys with multiple sacks. Anthony Hines, Derek Robertson. couple other guys chipped in, but you got to give credit where it's due. Again, 8 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. That's 17 times that they were tackled in the backfield. I mean, that you're not going to win a football game if you're the Birmingham Stallions. I don't care how good you are. I don't care who your coach is. I don't care at all. If you get put in the backfield 17 times, you're not going to win a football game.
You're 100% right. And, I don't know what you do if you're Birmingham, if you're Skip Holtz, if you're used to winning. You heard some pretty heated exchanges. The team, they wanted to go up tempo. The quarterback seemed to say, "Hey, stop doing substitutions. They can't keep up with us." Well, apparently they could keep up with you.
They did. They most certainly kept up. The only substitution that I would be considering now is at quarterback. Again, I don't want to trash on Alex Magoo. He's new, but Matt Corral's a great quarterback. You're losing. You're a way better team than what you put out there. That was a terrible game for you. The season's not over. It's one game. But next week, if Magoo comes out and does some of the same things that he did there, again, you want to see him use his legs, get that 3rd and 18. You want to see him be able to extend the play. But if he's taking stupid sacks, making stupid decisions, you got to get him out of there. And you got to play a guy in Matt Corral who had a lot of success at Ole Miss. He has some NFL tape that you can look at and say, hey, this is where you failed the last time you were in the NFL. Let's correct this here. Let's take you to the next level. Let's use our receivers. Let's use our tight ends. Our running backs can be good both in the running game and the passing game. Let's find a way to get them involved and be dynamic with it. Let's not have a simple basic offense here because let's be real, they ran a very simple basic offense with Magoo, who's only been there for a few days. So they have time. I'm not sounding the sirens, but they certainly did not look like a defending champion. They were not defending a thing.
No, they didn't. And I would also probably at least seriously consider make the switch to Matt Corral. However, Magoo can still be in the game. When Cordell Stewart was first drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, he got the nickname Slash because even though he was drafted as a quarterback, he played running back, he played slot receiver, he played wide receiver. Occasionally, he played quarterback. And you could do the exact same thing with Magoo, and he can still be on there for 75 to 100% of the offensive plays all over the place, and he can be your X factor, your Slash, and and Corral is your regular quarterback, and that might make them that keeps the strong legs, but you have someone who is more poised and makes better decisions.
And with all of this too, I do want to say we've been kind of talking about Corral like he's the thrower and Magoo's the runner. Corral can also move a little bit. I mean, he's not going to hit no 40-40 or 4-4 on the 40-yard dash, but I mean, he's a pretty good guy. He can move as well. So I don't know. I would also look at Matt Corral. I haven't been seeing these practices, so maybe Matt Corral's completely checked out and maybe he's not the guy. But I would absolutely, if we're talking about former resumes and just looking at pure on-paper talent, I would totally give him a chance.
All right. Who would you give your week 1 awards to?
Well, first, I want to say that the biggest surprise to me was the Birmingham Stallions. Going back to a question I asked you earlier, I mean, they were the biggest surprise. And if we're saying the biggest loser, it was Birmingham. I mean, the other 3 teams that lost, let's just be honest, we expected them to lose. I mean, the 3 teams that won at the first 3 games were all pretty big favorites. They definitely continued to show the betting odds constantly throughout the game. So everybody knows that. And they won pretty handedly. I think if we're talking about the week 1 awards, are we talking like an MVP award, or are we just talking winners and losers?
Any way you want to go with it. It's only week 1.
Well, I'm going to go with Jacob Sailors and I'm going to say his name wrong, Jarvarian Howard. The 2 of them in that backfield for St. Louis, I would say those were the biggest winners. I think they looked super, super strong. And the fact that you have a 2-headed monster that can even turn into a 3-headed monster there with all the receiving threats that they have, that's my biggest winners. That St. Louis offense is going to be something to really be scared of this year.
I'm going to give mine to Manny Wilkins, coming in under a lot of pressure and performed to balance the running back. And, I'd like to give it to the head coach for DC, but I'm not really sure that it wasn't Birmingham that didn't beat themselves as much as DC won. But I will give it to the DC defense because their pressure was pretty relentless, and I want.
Let's maybe do it this way. Let's go team by team. What's the power rankings after week 1? And I think let's start from the bottom. I think we're both probably in agreement. Houston's number 8 and Memphis is number 7, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I think when you look at it, I mean, to me, there's two contenders for number 6. I think after what they did this week against Birmingham, it's hard to give it to DC. Although I think at the end of the year we might looking at DC there. But I do think right now after week 1 that the Brahmas are probably your 6th team. And then even though they lost to Birmingham or they beat Birmingham, I have to say I don't think DC is that good. I think DC is probably for now 5th, but they're definitely in the running to drum both the Brahmas, Memphis, or Houston at any point this season. And at that rate, we're talking about the top 4 teams. So what do you think the top 4 teams look like in the UFL this year?
Well, St. Louis looked pretty complete. So I would have to put St. Louis on top. Arlington, I think that they probably come in right now at number 2. I want to say Michigan, but I just can't. And I can't put Birmingham there either because they really looked inept. So, and you were right with DC. DC's offense didn't look so great. Their defense looked pretty great. But again, I put a lot of that on very poor decision-making by certain offensive players on their team. So yeah, I probably put St. Louis, Arlington, Michigan. I mean, I can't very well not put DC ahead of Birmingham after they just beat them.
I'm putting Birmingham ahead of them because I think you play that game 10 times and you put 5 games in DC, 5 games in Birmingham. I think Birmingham wins all 5 of those games at home, and I think they probably win 3 or 4 of those renditions in DC. I think this was a very once in a blue moon win for DC, and credit to them. They put it together at the right time, but I think you run that game back 10 more times, they don't win that game very many times.
I understand what you're saying. You almost have me talked into it, but if I was to start doing that, I probably would put Birmingham ahead of Michigan also. So I'm going to put DC at 4, then Birmingham, and then Memphis and Houston.
Our bottom 3. And I can agree with you. I think both Michigan and Birmingham could make a huge case by the end of the year to top Arlington. I think it's going to be very, very hard to move St. Louis. I'm going to, from the jump, I think St. Louis is head and shoulders above every other team in this league. I think Arlington maybe can give them a run for their money. Birmingham on their best day can probably as well. But I think St. Louis is far and beyond the most complete team. And if that's not the team that's victorious at the end of the season, honestly, at this point in time, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah. Killing the team while you're in their home opener and you didn't even get your best player arguably involved in the game at all, and winning by that margin is pretty impressive. So yeah,
they won pretty easily. I mean, so what was 31-0, right?
Well, 31-6. That was in the fourth quarter. Later.
And I'll be honest, I turned the game off with about 6 minutes left because it was just over.
Well, luckily, you know who all the players are, but I watched the whole game. So between the two of us, we were actually fully responsible. Do we know what the schedule is for next week? Who's playing who?
I can pull it up. I don't know it off the top of my head, but we've got 4 games next week. I believe it's the exact same schedule. Let me pull up week 2 here. And so week 2, we've got on Friday the 4th, I believe. Let me just clock. So it's got to be the Friday game. Yep. Friday the 4th of April. We got Birmingham playing in Detroit, Michigan at Ford Field against Michigan. That's probably going to be the game of the week. This is a matchup that I would rather see in the first race. But whatever. Then we go to Saturday. First game is in prime time. Actually, only one game on Saturday. 8 p.m. You got Memphis playing in DC. So DC gets 2 games in a row at home. So that definitely helps them with their coaching woes. And a very, very winnable game for DC. So DC could start this year 2-0. And honestly, if we're going to make predictions, I'll probably pick them. We can get to that in a second. But I don't know if 3-0 is going to be in the cards for them. But then you get to Sunday, noon Eastern time in Arlington, Texas. We got Houston playing Arlington, so Battle of Texas, and a very good game. And then we got the night game, 6:30, a little bit of time separating the two, which I don't love that decision. But in St. Louis is making their home opener against the same team that they had their home opener against last year, San Antonio Brahmas, at 6:30. So some good games. Let's start from the top, though. Starting the week off on Friday night, 8 p.m. Birmingham visiting Michigan. Who do you got?
Wow. I really have to test myself now. I'm going to go with Birmingham for the win.
Interesting. And this is a game I'm going back and forth on because I do think if Michigan's defense comes to play, which they have in the last 11 games of UFL football, we've seen their defense come to play. This is a game Michigan can win. If we're talking betting odds, I think Birmingham's probably going to be the favorite, even after what happened here. And I think you can see Michigan as a home team that might not look like an underdog necessarily at the end of the game. With that said, I do think Birmingham is the more talented team. But the way Alex McCoo played, there's no way they win this game. So I'm actually going to go with Michigan. I think if Michigan can keep their running game alive long enough into that game, I think based off what Birmingham did this past week, Michigan might be able to induce a few mistakes from Birmingham and pull this out in a really close game.
Okay. All right. Well, so we have our first dissenting predictions of the year.
And like we said, week one, we would have been on the same side of every game, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm giving us
truly the first one of the year. Yeah. Truly the first one of the year that we're on the opposite sides of. So
Saturday night, it's DC at home against Memphis.
Memphis, and I kind of spoiled my pick. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to go DC in one of probably the worst football games you'll see on live television. I'm so sorry that is your Saturday night spot. There's some UFC fights on that you might want to put on your other screen that if you have two screens, because I think this is going to be a sloppy game. You might look at it and say, oh, wow, it was a defensive game. And you're going to say it's a defensive game because I don't think either offense is going to do much. I think DC at home.
Well, I have a better option for everybody. Saturday night, April 5th, live on YouTube at 10 p.m. Eastern is Major League Wrestling's Battle Riot, where, yes, Matt Riddle has to defend his MLW World's Heavyweight Championship against 39 other men, or maybe competitors, in the middle ring in a battle royal style. And my best friend, Mr. Thomas, is one of the entrants and is obviously the future MLW champion. Boumaye is for the people. I am a people, so I am with Boumaye. So you can watch it on YouTube for free. Plus the rest of
everybody likes free.
Yeah, everybody likes free right there on YouTube. So,
and then you can put the UFL game on the other screen so you can keep up with us. But if you choose not to, I understand, and we'll keep you updated after the game next Sunday at 7 p.m.
And my best friend, Mr. Thomas. So we go
Mr. Thomas.
That's right. I, too, will go with DC, and I think it's going to be a bit of a laugher.
Yeah, I think that's the right phrase to use because I think we got another laugher coming at us at noon on Sunday. Houston's visiting Arlington in Choctaw Stadium. I'll go first real quick here. Arlington in an absolute beatdown.
Yeah, I see no reason how Houston can possibly win this game. I think Arlington wins as well. If Arlington doesn't, there's something endemically wrong with this team.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's rough. I don't know who you play quarterback there. If I'm them, I'm going back to Anthony Brown. I like both the guys. Again, I think Anthony Brown's a little bit bigger, a little bit more arm talent, maybe a little bit more of a powerful runner, whereas Henderson might be a little bit quicker. He might be more nimble. I don't know if his arm talent necessarily is as good as Brown, but it might be a little bit more accurate. So you have a little bit of pick your poison. Do you want the guy that's a little bit more accurate, or do you want the guy that has maybe a little bit more boom or bust potential? If I'm talking spring league football, I'd probably go Anthony Brown until it's abundantly clear that he's not going to make it work. And you can mix in Nolan Henderson as well because his legs looked like a very valid threat. But then again, they were just sitting back and letting them play short. I mean, any quarterback should have been able to run the ball. So that'll be an interesting storyline to play out, and we'll definitely talk about that next week. But I'll say Anthony Brown starting there, and that should be a laugher. Yeah.
Probably, yeah. So Arlington. So we agree on DC and Arlington. So those are two picks in the book, and then our last game.
I think we might agree here.
The Sunday evening game. So this is in San Antonio.
No, this is in St. Louis. St. Louis is home opener.
Their home opener on a Sunday evening. It's I wonder they're Central Time, so it's 5 p.m.
5:30 there. Yep.
Yeah.
6:30 Eastern. And I think this one's going to be a much more fun game than the last two we spoke about.
Yeah, well, I think just the environment of a stadium that should have, if they fail, 25,000 people, and if they succeed, they might have as many as 40,000 people in it. So yeah, but either way, whether there's 40,000 people or 40 people, and I still think the result is going to be the same, and that'll be the St. Louis Battlehawks defeat the San Antonio Brahmas, because this is not the Brahmas team that I saw last year.
Yeah, and I think if the game of the week is Birmingham versus Michigan, the game you don't want to miss to end the week is probably this one, because I do think the Brahmas are going to be better than last week. I think it would be hard for them to be as bad as they were last week. So I do think it'll be a little bit of a different story for the Brahmas. With that said, I don't see a world where St. Louis loses. I could see this being St. Louis starting pretty quick, getting some points on the board, and then San Antonio coming back in the second half, putting some points on the board, showing some promise, but it'll be a little too late. I definitely think St. Louis is the side here. And again, I think they're far and beyond the best team in the league.
Can't argue with you. Don't want to argue with you. I agree.
I'd probably win. Don't need to be a lawyer to win an argument here.
No, not that one. That's a pretty good one. Yeah. So, all right. So we agree on 3. We disagree on 1, and who knows? One of us should be going 3-1.
Hopefully, if everything plays out the way it should.
Right. Otherwise, and the other one should be going 4-0. So if that doesn't happen, I think we'll both be a little bit surprised. Then again, it's early in the season, so teams could have had off games. The coaches could have had off, and sometimes the ball just bounces the wrong direction. So
any given Sunday,
that's what I say, or Saturday or Friday. So
nowadays, when it's like the prime television deals, you got to make sure that we make the most of the prime TV spots.
I am very curious to see the ratings numbers coming out, especially for Friday night. That is in where that slot that SmackDown used to occupy on Fox, and they would get 2.2, on a normal week. Sometimes they get as much as 3. Their season premiere was, or the premiere there was 4, but they never really got close to that. After that, I want to see if the UFL can do 1.5 to 2 million people on Friday night, which is probably a bit of a stretch.
They need to do over 1 million. For certain. They have to do over 1 million. If you can't do over 1 million, there's no way this is going to last longer. I mean, I hate to be such a Debbie Downer, but there's absolutely no chance. If you're not getting 1 million people to tune in on a Friday night in prime time for the season opener, you're not getting it ever again until maybe the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you should be able to get 100,000 just from hotels, bars, restaurants. Just all these places have 36 screens on that. At least 6 of them should be.
At least one should be Fox. I mean, Buffalo Wild Wings got to have at least one TV with UFL on.
Exactly. So all these places. So yeah, and that's how the ad rates go up. I don't know if the ad rates are the same as last year. I believe they sold all their ads for the year.
I believe it was the same rate as last year, but I feel like I read that somewhere, but I could be wrong.
Well, whatever it is, if they can get anywhere close to what WWE was charging for SmackDown ad rates on the Fox end, I mean, that's going to be a good way to get the league towards cash flow profitability, recouping their investment, and that then there's a really solid argument that you should pay the players a little bit more, maybe a little bit more than a little bit more. Their goal of year-round health insurance, it's a nice goal, but you'd have to have everyone on payroll year-round. I mean, that's the way group benefits work. The only exception is if the union is subsidized and they get their insurance through the union. And while there is a UFL Players Association, I'm not sure that it formally represents all of the players. I think it's still sort of like a pinky.
I think they're figuring it out.
Yeah, I think it's still a pinky swear. I don't think they actually represent them fully in collective bargaining. So I'm not sure. We'll figure it out.
We're not a part of these discussions, so we're not privy to that information. We'll just put it out there. I will say a couple of shout-outs. I love the shout-out to defense. I haven't done it enough. Greedy Williams, sorry. Different Williams.
Well, Greedy, what a great name.
Greedy Williams, he did well for the Brahmas on defense. DeAndre Baker, which I'm now drawing a huge blank, and I've been scrolling as fast as I can the last few seconds to make sure I'm correct. I believe I'm totally drawing a blank on which team he used. He almost had 2 interceptions. I know he had 1, but he almost had a second. Both of them at corner, both former NFL guys, both played really well. DeAndre Baker, Damon Arnett.
Well, there was a Birmingham DB that dropped 2 interceptions. I mean, they weren't easy interceptions, but they dropped 2 interceptions.
Which is crazy because I'm looking here. I'm like, I don't see his name. I know they had the big boy interception, though. Carlos Davis, I want to say, big boy, got that pick on the screen pass.
Oh, yeah, Carlos Davis.
Really,
yeah, that
was fun to watch. Yeah. I don't know. Wherever DeAndre Baker plays, former Georgia first-round pick for the Giants, he had a good game. Damon Arnett was a little bit less active, but he's another former first-round pick that the league picked up this year. Greedy Williams, he's a guy that was a pretty high pick. So there's some decent cornerbacks in this league, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes from there.
So I would normally have given Carlos Davis the play of the week, and there's an argument for the 2 very long runs as being play of the week. But for me, the play of the week, was that tight end who the ball got tipped. He landed, flat, horizontal on the field, extends his hand, watches the ball, basically catches the ball with one hand, but doesn't really catch it. He just controls it and brings it in and catches it for a reception. It was a 7-yard reception, but as they said in commentary, that might be the best 7-yard reception we'll ever see.
Yeah, and I think, for me, I thought the Kainakua interception was very good. He jumped the route really well. He had all of his team out there blocking in front of him, and they took it to the house with ease. I think that's a great play, but it's hard to not say Carlos Davis. I mean, that guy's over 300 pounds getting out in space and getting a pick. So that was a good way, and that sealed the game for them too.
If we had a TV show on ESPN that was the UFL this week, and you wanted to bring people in, we could find a bunch of good plays to splice in and out to make it look like the games were rock solid, and say, hey, I want to check out the rest of that show and see what happened.
There were a couple of good highlight plays. I'm not going to give it more than a couple, though. We're going to have to keep them honest. We're going to have to be critics, because at the end of the day, we're not going to just be here and suck up to them. There's definitely a lot better football that we could have watched on that field Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But there were definitely some really, really impressive plays. And there's definitely going to be a number of players from this league who are going to attract the attention from the NFL. And we'll see them, at least in training camp, or fighting to earn spots for the regular season. And that's what the beauty of this league is.
I hope so. I hope that you're right, that they do get that attention, they do get that opportunity, because the more of them that do get that opportunity and make it to teams, even for short periods of time, that's a reason why players will want to play for this league. And as you pointed out, even if you are on the practice squad and never make it to the field, or the scouting team, whatever, or you do make it, you might make more 1 week in the NFL than you make for the entire season in the UFL. And between the two, and you also get paid when you're on the practice squad and on the scout team as well. I mean, it goes up when you make the field on the real team, the real game. So, between all of that, you're making a pretty good, you're making a dentist's income. So,
dentist income.
Yeah. So nothing wrong with that. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else for us to cover. We've gone over an hour and a half, which was frankly a bit of a surprise to me that we managed to do this long.
I said it would take 90 minutes, and we basically wrapped up at about 90 minutes and rambled on here for the last 5. So I'm happy about that. I know you have more shout outs than me. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be here back next Sunday, 7 p.m. If you definitely want to follow me, most of my stuff's going to be more MMA related or combat sports related. Got some news coming there where I'll be doing some interviews again. It's been a while since I've done that. So that'll be coming in the future, but just put a little hashtag, or not hashtag, underscore, the little underscore line, Jake underscore Lipp Men, to follow me on Twitter. I've been tweeting a little bit of UFL stuff. I'm hoping to increase that as I get more and more knowledgeable and more into the season, because right now, I have to be honest, I'm a little bit more invested in March Madness. I would have loved if the season waited about 2 weeks to start, but definitely follow along, and we'll be back next Sunday. But I will pass it on to the older version of myself over there to shout out his 10,000 podcasts.
Yeah, I have so much.
Too much.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So aside from this show, which is fantastic, of course, so if you go to Apple or Podbean or Spreaker or Amazon or iCloud, whatever, and go type in Garden of Thought and you subscribe to that, you will end up getting probably 3 shows a week. I used to call one show Garden of Doom, one show Garden Views. I've now merged them both into Garden of Thought. But the weekend show, just to keep the description relatively short, if you turn on the Discovery Channel and or the History Channel around 7 p.m. and just leave it on until 3 a.m., that's sort of the landscape of what you're going to get on the weekend show. On the midweek show, it's probably more like your old news magazine shows, like your 48 Hours, your Datelines, your 2020s. So like that. And lots of really exciting guests, authors, things like that, college professors, people who've done the great courses, all sorts of things. A couple of Emmy Award winners have been on the show. And then the third show is GOT, for Garden of Thought, presents either the Book of Black or the Gospel of Thomas. Why, Jeff? Why do you give it 2 names? Because it depends who my co-host is. Sometimes it's PJ Black. Sometimes it's Mr. Thomas, my best friend. PJ, my second best friend. And
rankings out here.
Yeah, that's right. I got rankings. I got my power rankings, and they shift. So we talk to people. So if you don't know PJ Black, you might know Justin Gabriel. That was his name in WWE for 5 years, but they're both professional wrestlers. And we talk to people in wrestling, generally about non-wrestling things. So we've had some fabulous guests on, and one of them turned into a guest on Garden of Thought, where I had him and my Reverend Doctor friend from the UK talking about the occult and Shakespeare. And I had Aaron Stevens, who you might know as Damien Sandow from WWE, talking about this. They're both Shakespearean actors. So that was a whole lot of fun. And we make interesting things happen on Garden of Thought. There are some interesting things that a side project that we're working on. There is another side quest that has come straight out of that show, which may turn into something fun with a real actor and sort of a Lucha Underground reunion. So interesting things happen on these shows that don't. The show I'm going to publish tomorrow is with April Hunter. She was a Nitro girl. She was also in Carmen Electra's Naked Wrestling pay-per-view from way back when. Yes, the Carmen Electra that was with Dennis Rodman and Baywatch. And tomorrow we're going to interview all 6'12" of Big Trouble Ben Bishop. I've got Steve Off scheduled. I've got Tiffany Nieves scheduled. A wrestler from Maryland who's also a witch, Kaya McKenna, scheduled. So all sorts of fun things going on there. Off of my own network on Wrestling Soup, I do legal wrestling shorts called Body Slam Briefs. They are anywhere from 7 to 25 minutes long about where wrestling and legal intersect. So that's fun. We also just started an Evolve for the NXT Evolve show, a review show, which was with me and White Chocolate. Apparently Misha's going to join us for that too. So that's Wednesday nights. And when we do the SmackDown review show on Wrestling Soup, we've missed it more than we've done it, but I'm on that as well. And I do the NXT PLE review shows for the Drew Yari Experience. And
out of breath just talking about the podcast you do.
I know, and me too. And I just guested on Marie Shadow's Square Circle podcast where we reviewed MLW, and she does a great job. And actually, she's going to be on one of the Garden of Thoughts also with another wrestler that's in Contra on MLW, Quan. So we've got that. We just have to figure out a date. So anyway, yeah, there's that. And I pop up every now and then on Pro Wrestling Times, and I pop up around. But if you follow me on the X, believe me, I crow to the mountains what I'm going to be on, so you won't miss it. And yes, sometimes I get sick of me also. Hey, it's Greg Ogles. I remember him. He was on Garden of Doom as well. He's a Bigfoot guy. Yep, Relic Films. He Land Between the Lakes recently came out to high critical acclaim.
One of my scariest dreams are Bigfoot stepping on me, so we don't talk about Bigfoot.
Oh, the first rule of Bigfoot is we don't talk about Bigfoot. Well, how about if we just go with Sasquatch then?
Okay, that works. But
well,
I think this is a
cryptid hunter. Greg is a cryptid hunter.
Well, I think this is a great place to wrap it up for today. Again, thank you to everybody. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Make sure you follow the message down below here. Please like, follow, and share. Glenn, we might have to get some commas in there in between like, follow, and share. Get some grammar up in here. But thank you to Glenn, as always. He was shy today, but I'm sure he'll be a little bit more social next week when we're back 7 p.m. Sunday evening. But I'll pass it off for final conclusions.
There's a big difference between I'd like to eat grandma and I'd like to eat grandma.
Massive difference.
See you next week. Stay evil, my friends.